The longer a new car sits on a dealer lot, the more pressure builds on the seller, but the risk quietly shifts to the buyer. Behind those deep discounts are brutal depreciation, high interest payments, and long-term problems no one mentions at signing. Today we're counting down the top 10 new vehicles that have been sitting unsold the longest, to separate real bargains from the traps that make buyers regret everything. This countdown is built on hard data, not opinions. We use dealer inventory and days on lot reports, combined with reliability scores from consumer reports, recall and complaint data from the NHTSA, and findings from industry technical bulletins. Vehicles that remained unsold for extended periods were flagged and analyzed for depreciation risk, reliability concerns, and real-world ownership costs. 10. Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport. At number 10, we start with a vehicle that looks like a safe, modern family SUV, but has quietly struggled to earn buyer confidence. The Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport. On paper, it checks the right boxes: bold styling, a roomy interior, and strong brand recognition. Yet in reality, many of these SUVs have been sitting on dealer lots far longer than expected, often well past what's considered healthy inventory turnover. The core problem isn't a single catastrophic failure, it's death by 1,000 annoyances. Owners and industry reports have repeatedly flagged infotainment system glitches, random warning lights, sensor failures, and inconsistent software behavior. These aren't dramatic breakdowns, but they're exactly the kinds of issues that erode trust in a daily driver, especially one marketed as a dependable family vehicle. From a financial perspective, long days on the lot translate directly into accelerated depreciation. The Atlas Cross Sport has struggled to hold value compared to rivals from Toyota and Honda, forcing dealers to rely on incentives, discounts, and financing deals just to move inventory. For buyers, that sounds attractive, until resale value collapses faster than expected. Consumer reliability studies have consistently placed this model below segment averages, and recall databases show repeated fixes tied to electronics and driver assistance systems. None of these alone make the vehicle undrivable, but together they create a pattern: hesitation from buyers, hesitation from the market, and hesitation from long-term owners considering resale. The advice here is simple. If you're looking for short-term ownership with a steep discount, the Atlas Cross Sport might tempt you. But if long-term reliability, resale value, and peace of mind matter, this is a vehicle that deserves serious caution. What looks like a bargain today can quietly become an expensive compromise tomorrow. 9. Ford Edge. At number 9, we have a vehicle that didn't fail overnight. It slowly faded out, and the market noticed long before production ended. The Ford Edge, especially in its final production years, became a textbook example of what happens when a model loses its identity in a brutally competitive SUV segment. When the Edge first launched, it filled a clear role, a mid-size crossover position neatly between compact SUVs and full-size family haulers. But over time, that position collapsed. Buyers began asking a simple question: why choose the Edge at all? It wasn't as efficient as smaller crossovers, not as spacious as three-row SUVs, and not premium enough to justify its price point. As inventories grew, Edge models started sitting on dealer lots for extended periods. Discounts increased, incentives piled up, and yet many units still struggled to move. That's a red flag, not just about demand, but about long-term value. Vehicles that require constant incentives to sell rarely age well in the resale market. Reliability didn't help its case. Reports and owner feedback repeatedly highlighted transmission behavior concerns, electronic glitches, and aging infotainment systems that felt outdated the moment newer competitors arrived. None of these issues were universally catastrophic, but together they created a perception problem. And perception is everything when buyers are choosing where to spend tens of thousands of dollars. Financially, the Edge became a depreciation trap. Once Ford announced the end of production, resale confidence took another hit. Buyers worried about long-term support, parts availability, and how the vehicle would be perceived on the used market 5 years down the line. That hesitation translated directly into longer days on dealer lots. The takeaway is clear: The Ford Edge isn't a disaster by design, but it represents a bad moment in timing, positioning, and market evolution. If you find one heavily discounted, understand why it's cheap. What you save up front may be offset by faster depreciation and limited long-term appeal. And that's exactly why the Edge earns its place at number 9. 8. Chevrolet Blazer. At number 8 sits a name that once meant rugged capability, but today raises a very different reaction among buyers: the Chevrolet Blazer. When Chevrolet revived the Blazer badge, expectations were sky high. People remembered a tough, no-nonsense SUV. What they got instead was a midsize crossover that struggled to justify its price, its purpose, or its place in the lineup. One of the biggest issues with the non-EV Blazer is identity confusion. It's styled aggressively, almost like a performance SUV, yet it doesn't deliver meaningful performance advantages. At the same time, it falls short on interior space and practicality compared to rivals in the same price range. Buyers walking into dealerships often looked at the Blazer, then walked out choosing something else. Inventory data reflected that hesitation. Many Blazers lingered on dealer lots far longer than expected. Even with incentives on the hood, that's usually a sign that pricing and value perception are misaligned. When a vehicle needs constant discounts just to stay competitive, depreciation becomes unavoidable and fast. Reliability perception hasn't helped either. Owner reports and industry feedback have pointed to inconsistent build quality, electronic glitches, and drivetrain complaints that, while not always catastrophic, undermine confidence. Add in an interior that feels dated for the money, and buyers start questioning what they're actually paying for. From a financial standpoint, the Blazer became a risky proposition. Faster than average value loss, combined with high initial pricing, makes it a tough vehicle to justify for long-term ownership. Even used market shoppers have shown caution, further reinforcing its slow movement off dealer lots. The advice here is straightforward. If you're drawn to the Blazer purely for styling, understand the trade-offs before signing anything. In a segment packed with stronger, more balanced competitors, the non-EV Chevrolet Blazer represents a case where branding and looks couldn't overcome weak value, earning it the number 8 spot on this list. 7. Jeep Grand Cherokee L. At number 7 is a vehicle that promised space, luxury, and capability, but ended up testing buyer patience: the Jeep Grand Cherokee L. On launch, this 3-row extension of the Grand Cherokee nameplate looked like a smart move. More seats, more tech, and a higher price tag aimed straight at family buyers. Yet many of these SUVs spent an uncomfortable amount of time sitting on dealer lots. The problem starts with complexity. The Grand Cherokee L introduced new platforms, new electronics, and layered driver assistance systems all at once. Early owners reported software instability, infotainment crashes, random warning lights, and sensor-related faults. None of these issues alone kill a sale, but together they create hesitation, especially for families who value reliability over novelty. Then there's the value squeeze. The Grand Cherokee L often landed in showrooms priced close to established 3-row leaders, yet without matching their long-term reliability reputation. Buyers comparing it to alternatives from Toyota or Honda frequently questioned whether the Jeep badge justified the risk. That uncertainty translated into longer days on the lot and heavier reliance on incentives. Reliability data and owner feedback didn't help confidence. Reports pointed to electrical gremlins and build quality inconsistencies, particularly in early production runs. For a vehicle marketed as upscale and family-ready, those issues undermine trust quickly. Families don't want to troubleshoot software on school mornings or road trips. Financially, the consequences are clear. Vehicles that sit unsold tend to depreciate faster once they leave the lot. Combine that with higher repair uncertainty outside warranty, and the Grand Cherokee L becomes a tougher long-term ownership bet than its styling suggests. The takeaway is caution. The Grand Cherokee L isn't unusable, but it represents a modern trend where more technology doesn't always mean a better ownership experience. If you're considering one, discounts alone shouldn't be the deciding factor, because the real cost often shows up after the honeymoon period ends. 6. Ram 2500 Heavy Duty. At number 6, we move into heavy-duty territory with a truck that looks unstoppable on paper, but has quietly struggled to move off dealer lots. The Ram 2500 Heavy Duty. This is a truck built for serious work, towing, and hauling, yet many examples have been sitting unsold far longer than expected, and that tells us something important about the market. The first issue is misalignment between capability and buyer reality. The Ram 2500 is overkill for most people. Outside of contractors, farmers, or frequent tower owners, this truck's size, weight, and operating costs simply don't make sense. As fuel prices fluctuate and interest rates rise, buyers increasingly shy away from vehicles they don't absolutely need, leaving heavy-duty trucks parked and waiting. Then comes the ownership cost factor. Insurance, maintenance, tires, and repair bills on heavy-duty trucks are significantly higher than on half-ton pickups. Add reports of suspension wear, steering concerns, and electronic issues, especially on heavily optioned trims, and hesitation grows fast. Buyers aren't just purchasing horsepower, they're buying long-term responsibility. From a financial standpoint, long days on the lot are especially dangerous for trucks like this. When demand cools, depreciation accelerates. Incentives become aggressive, resale values soften, and buyers who paid close to sticker quickly find themselves upside down on their loans. Reliability perception has also played a role. While powertrain options are capable, owner feedback and service data point to inconsistencies in build quality and electronics. For a truck marketed as built to serve, that contradiction raises red flags. The lesson here is simple, but critical. The Ram 2500 Heavy Duty isn't a bad truck for the right job, but for the wrong buyer, it's a financial anchor. If you don't truly need its capability, the discounts you see today may only be masking much higher costs down the road. 5. Toyota BZ4X. At number 5, we reach one of the most surprising names on this list, not because it's obscure, but because of the badge it carries. The Toyota BZ4X arrived with enormous expectations. This was supposed to be Toyota's confident step into the modern electric era. Instead, it became a case study in how a cautious rollout and early missteps can freeze buyer confidence and leave vehicles sitting on dealer lots. The most damaging moment came early. Shortly after launch, Toyota issued a high-profile recall related to wheel hub bolts, a rare and alarming safety issue that resulted in vehicles being pulled from sale. Even after fixes were implemented, the reputational damage lingered. For many buyers, especially first-time EV shoppers, trust once lost is extremely hard to rebuild. Beyond the recall, the BZ4X struggled with value perception. Range figures lagged behind competitors, charging performance failed to impress, and pricing felt ambitious for a product that didn't clearly lead in any category. In showrooms, buyers often compared it side by side with rival electric crossovers and walked away unconvinced. Inventory data reflected that hesitation. Many BZ4X units remained parked for extended periods, even as dealers increased incentives. Unlike traditional Toyota models that sell on reputation alone, this EV required explanation, and explanation slows sales. From a financial angle, long inventory life creates uncertainty around resale value. EV depreciation is already volatile, and when demand is weak at launch, long-term confidence erodes further. Buyers worry about future software updates, charging standards, and how the model will age in a rapidly evolving EV market. The takeaway is caution, not condemnation. The Toyota BZ4X isn't unusable, but it represents a moment where brand trust collided with a rushed entry into a competitive segment. For risk-averse buyers, waiting, or choosing a more proven alternative may be the smarter move. 4. Kia EV6. At number 4 is a vehicle that perfectly captures the contradiction of the modern electric car market, the Kia EV6. When it launched, the EV6 was praised for bold design, quick acceleration, and cutting-edge tech. Reviewers loved it, social media hyped it. Yet, on dealer lots, many of these vehicles quietly sat, and sat, and sat. The issue wasn't attention, it was commitment. Buyers admired the EV6, but hesitated to sign. One major factor was pricing. As incentives for electric vehicles shifted and competition intensified, the EV6 often found itself squeezed between cheaper alternatives and more established premium EVs. For many shoppers, the value equation no longer made sense. Then came the depreciation shock. Early owners watched resale values drop faster than expected as EV pricing wars intensified, especially after aggressive price cuts from larger EV players. That ripple effect hit buyer confidence hard. Shoppers don't want to buy today and feel underwater tomorrow. Reliability perception also played a role. While the EV6 avoided major mechanical disasters, owner feedback and service reports pointed to software glitches, charging inconsistencies, and infotainment issues. These are the kinds of problems that don't strand you, but they wear you down over time, especially in a vehicle built around technology. Inventory data confirmed the trend. In many regions, EV6 models remained unsold for well over 200 days, forcing dealers to lean heavily on discounts. When a vehicle requires constant incentives to move, the market is sending a message. The lesson here is subtle but important. The Kia EV6 isn't a bad car in isolation, but in a fast-moving EV market, timing is everything. Strong design and performance couldn't protect it from shifting incentives, resale anxiety, and buyer hesitation, earning it the number 4 spot on this list. 3. Land Rover Discovery. At number 3, we arrive at a name synonymous with adventure, luxury, and off-road heritage, yet also with long-standing ownership anxiety, the Land Rover Discovery. This SUV carries immense brand prestige, but in recent years, that prestige hasn't translated into buyer confidence. Instead, many Discovery models have spent an extraordinary amount of time sitting on dealer lots, often well beyond 200 days. The core issue is trust. Land Rover's reputation for advanced engineering is paired with an equally strong reputation for reliability concerns. Owners and industry data consistently point to electrical faults, infotainment failures, air suspension issues, and warning lights that appear without clear cause. These aren't rare edge cases. They're patterns that have followed the Discovery across generations. From a financial standpoint, the Discovery is particularly dangerous. High initial pricing combined with rapid depreciation creates a steep drop in value the moment the vehicle leaves the lot. Dealers often resort to heavy incentives to move inventory, which further erodes resale values for owners who bought early or paid close to sticker. Maintenance costs compound the problem. Out-of-warranty repairs on suspension, electronics, and driveline components can reach eye-watering numbers. For many buyers, the fear isn't just breakdowns. It's the unpredictability of repair bills. That uncertainty alone is enough to keep shoppers walking past the Discovery in favor of safer alternatives. Inventory data reflects this hesitation clearly. Long days on the lot signal a market that admires the Discovery from a distance but avoids committing. Buyers love the idea of owning one. They just don't want to live with it. The takeaway is blunt. The Land Rover Discovery offers capability and comfort. Few rivals can match, but it demands a tolerance for risk. For most buyers, that risk outweighs the reward, securing its place at number 3. 2. Nissan Murano. At number 2 is a vehicle that perfectly illustrates how a model can quietly fall out of favor while still wearing a familiar name, the Nissan Murano. Once positioned as a stylish, comfortable midsize crossover, the Murano has struggled to stay relevant in a market that moved on faster than Nissan expected. The result has been one of the longest average stints on dealer lots in its segment, often stretching well beyond 200 days. The Murano's biggest weakness is stagnation. While competitors evolved with hybrid options, updated powertrains, and modern infotainment systems, the Murano remained largely unchanged. Buyers stepping into showrooms quickly noticed that the interior, technology, and driving experience felt dated, especially at its price point. Then there's the powertrain perception problem. The Murano's association with Nissan's continuously variable transmission has created lingering distrust among buyers. Even when improvements were made, the damage to reputation was already done. Shoppers remember the stories, and memory drives hesitation. Financially, the Murano became a depreciation trap. As inventories piled up, dealers leaned heavily on incentives to move units. That may benefit short-term buyers, but it signals weak demand. And weak demand almost always leads to poor resale value. For long-term ownership, that's a costly combination. Reliability reports and owner feedback further fueled caution, pointing to electronic issues, infotainment lag, and aging driver assistance systems. None of these alone would doom a vehicle, but together they reinforced a sense that the Murano belonged to a previous era. The message is clear. The Nissan Murano isn't a dramatic failure, it's a slow fade, and in today's market, being forgettable can be just as damaging as being flawed. That's why it sits just one step away from the top of this list. 1. Jeep Gladiator. At number 1 is the vehicle that best defines this entire list, the Jeep Gladiator. On paper, it should have been a guaranteed success. A pickup truck with Jeep's legendary off-road image, removable doors, and trail-ready hardware sounds like a dream product. In reality, the Gladiator became one of the clearest examples of a vehicle the market admired but refused to buy. The first problem is pricing versus reality. The Gladiator entered showrooms with sticker prices that pushed deep into full-size truck territory, yet it delivered compromises everywhere else. The ride quality is harsh, rear seat space is tight, and everyday usability suffers compared to traditional pickups. Buyers quickly realized they were paying a premium for character, not comfort or practicality. Then came the issue that truly damaged confidence: steering instability, commonly referred to as death wobble. Numerous owner complaints and service reports described violent front-end shaking at highway speeds, often triggered by bumps or uneven pavement. Even when fixes were available, the psychological impact was severe. Buyers don't forget safety scares, and hesitation spreads fast. Inventory data made the verdict impossible to ignore. Gladiators sat on dealer lots for extraordinary lengths of time, frequently exceeding 200 days. Dealers piled on incentives, discounts grew aggressive, and yet many units still struggled to move. When a vehicle marketed as rugged freedom needs constant discounts, something has gone wrong. Financially, the Gladiator became a trap. Heavy incentives crushed resale values, while owners faced high fuel costs, insurance premiums, and potential suspension repairs. For buyers who financed at or near sticker price, depreciation hit hard and fast. The conclusion is unavoidable. The Jeep Gladiator isn't a bad idea. It's a bad execution for the modern buyer. It asks too much, gives too little, and demands tolerance for compromises most people don't want to live with. That's why it stands at number 1, the clearest warning sign on the dealer lot. This list isn't about brand hate or bad luck. It's about market signals buyers ignore at their own risk. Vehicles that sit on dealer lots for hundreds of days do so for a reason. Weak demand, shaky value, or long-term ownership concerns. Heavy discounts may look tempting, but depreciation, reliability doubts, and resale losses often follow. Buying smart today means reading the warning signs, not chasing the biggest rebate. In the next video, we'll flip the script and look at vehicles that actually earn buyer trust over time.